there, welcome back to Whole30 Day 13. We are almost halfway there. And this is just a little bonus recipe I have for you today. It is officially fall. The first day of fall was yesterday. And so we finished school a little bit early today and we went down to the farmer's market. And this is a big treat. My kids love it because you get lots and lots of samples and it's all fruit and vegetables, so we can eat everything that is offered to us, and that is really nice. They have these really big grapes that I know they grow here in North Carolina. I don't know where else they grow, but they're called muscadine, and I've heard great things about them. People love muscadine jelly and muscadine wine, and excuse me, the kids both took one and took a bite, and they were not fans. So I thought that was pretty funny. But we got apple samples from all the different vendors. We got to try all the different apples. Honeycrisp is apparently the apple of choice, and apparently everybody loves them, and they charge 3 times as much for the Honeycrisp as everything else, which is crazy. We have one farmer down there that we really like. We buy peaches from them, and this time of year they're selling apples, and they're super nice, and just like they always do, you can buy the apples by the pound, or you can buy a peck or a half a peck. So I got 2 half-peck bags. It was $5 per bag, and they just tell you to stuff them full. And I set my bags down on the counter and like, oh, you go put 2 more in there. Oh no, there's still room. Go put 3 more in there. And so I felt like we really got a good value. Now, these are not organic apples, so I did have to wash them really well. And then of course I'm peeling them, because what I'm going to do today, this is completely Whole30 approved, is we're going to make applesauce in the Instant Pot. And homemade applesauce might seem strange because it's such an easy thing to buy and it's not expensive. But if you've never had homemade applesauce, you have to try it. My grandma used to make it. They lived in Ohio, and so she would go to some orchards up near them, and they would pick apples, and then she would make applesauce. And when we would go visit, I would beg for her to get some applesauce out of the freezer for me. This one is, these are Jonah Gold, or Jonna Gold. She always called them Jonna Gold. I'm not sure which is proper. But they have a sort of a shinier skin. They're a little harder to get started. You can certainly peel these with a knife, or there are these peeling contraptions if you have one of those. But I have this really good peeler, and I find that it works well. But anyway, Grandma introduced me to homemade applesauce, and it was so good. She was such a good cook, and she would always have all kinds of cookies and pies and cake for us, and I would want a bowl of applesauce for my dessert. So when I was old enough, she taught me how to make it. And she just did what I'm doing. Of course, she did have a pressure cooker, but I don't remember her ever using it. I'm sure she did way back when. She used it for canning. Or she was probably a pressure canner now that I think about it. But she would just peel and core her apples and put them on the stove with a little bit of water to get them started, and cook them until they were soft, you know, the texture of applesauce. And she didn't run them through a food processor or anything fancy like that. I think she probably used her potato masher and mashed them down to a nice smooth applesauce consistency. Now, of course, Grandma, being of her generation, used a lot of sugar. So even apples that are very sweet, she would have certainly added sugar to her applesauce. And so we're on Whole30, so I'm not going to add any sugar. And frankly, I don't think it would be necessary. However, if you want to just be really extra decadent, when you serve your applesauce, you could pretend it's like an apple cobbler or something and put a scoop of vanilla ice cream on top, if you're not doing Whole30, of course. Or maybe just pour a little cream or coconut cream, and that would feel really, really decadent. Or drizzle a little maple syrup. That's what I was thinking about with the sugar. Or even sprinkle a little maple sugar on top. Would be really yummy. But what I'm going to do, so I'm on day 13 of Whole30. I've not had, I think I had half a banana one day. I've had a couple pieces of a green apple here and there, but I've hardly had even any fruit. So I've just not had any taste of sweetness for 13 days, and I was in the mood for something. So I thought some applesauce, homemade applesauce, would be an awesome dessert. So what I'm planning to do tonight is have some of this fresh, warm, cinnamony applesauce and toast a few pecans. I'll probably melt some ghee in my skillet and toast some pecans and just a little sprinkle of sea salt on top of those. I love that salty, sweet combination. And I'm sure I'll feel like I'm having a slice of apple pie. Speaking of which, I have an awesome apple pie recipe that I came up with at Thanksgiving. And there, I believe, unless he took it down, there are 2 different videos of me making the apple pie. Because I did it back on Facebook Live last fall, and then I made just a straight up video for YouTube on Pie Day this year. Took pie to my kids' homeschool class. So all I'm going to do is, I'm sorry, I thought I would be real fast and you wouldn't have to watch me peel all of these. But I'm going to peel them, obviously, and then I will core them. And so I'll quarter them and cut the cores out and put them in my Instant Pot. And I'm going to add this cup of apple cider. You need some liquid in the Instant Pot. And so you can most certainly use water. You could use apple juice. You could use a different flavored juice if you wanted to add a different flavor to your applesauce. But I want to keep that pure apple flavor, and we happen to also buy a half gallon of apple cider from one of the farmers out at the market today. So I thought that would be delicious. And I'm going to put in a squeeze of about a half a lemon because we need a little bit of tartness. And I'm going to add some cinnamon and a little sprinkle of salt, some sea salt, and that's it. You could add all sorts of warm spices if you wanted. You could add nutmeg, allspice, ground ginger. All of those would be delicious. But we're just going to stick with the basics. Let's see if I can remember the type of apples I bought. This greenish yellow one, oh gosh, wish my kids were here. They would probably remember. It's not a Golden Delicious, but golden was in the name. But it's actually a tart apple. Those shiny red ones were the Jonah Gold. There are Fuji's. Fuji's are the sweet ones, the sweetest of the bunch that I bought. So basically what I'm getting at is in different parts of the country there are different types of apples that you'll find. And so these are kind of the standard ones that we find here. And I didn't spring for any of the $3.50 a pound Honeycrisp. Those are of course very good, but they're sort of a treat, so we didn't get any of those today. And they're sweet and crunchy. I chose all firm apples. There were a couple that had a nice flavor, but were a little bit softer, and I just do not like that. This Jonah Gold is really, Jonah Gold, that doesn't make sense. Maybe it's called Jonah Red, because it's red. I'm sorry, I don't remember. But the point is that you want a mix of some tart and some sweet, or at least that is what I prefer. I do have mostly sweet, but I have about, I think about a third are the tart varieties and 2/3 are the sweet. Phew! I wish I had not worked out this morning. My arms are sore. So all I'm going to do is cut them in half. I did already wash them really well. Cut them in half again. Cut out the little core and throw it in my Instant Pot. And I did look to see what the Instant Pot people had to say about the time for cooking apples, and they said 2 to 3 minutes, but as I read their instructions, there's a little paragraph above the chart with the times, and it talked about steaming your fruit and using it in different recipes. And so my thought is that they are thinking you want like a baked apple where it still is keeping its structure, and I do not want that. I definitely want my apple to be completely soft. I'm going to have to get out a third knife because this little paring knife is too small, and my big chef's knife is a little too big for this process. So I'm going to pause the video because you don't need to see me doing all of this. I'm just going to continue to core all of my apples, and then I'll come back and show you the rest. Okay, let me show you all my apples. So you can see I was pretty close to the fill line, so it's a lot of apples, but they're going to cook down. But I want a lot of applesauce, so I poured in my 1 cup of apple cider. Could use water, like I said before. I'm going to put in a teaspoon of applesauce. No, that was a teaspoon of cinnamon, not a teaspoon of applesauce. I'm thinking a whole bunch of different things at once here. And then I have half a lemon, and there's a seed in there. Ooh, that is a hard one. I gotta get my juicer. So nice when they just squeeze real easily, but that one did not. It's putting up a fight. Okay, so let me tell you how much this is I'm putting in. Oh, it's just like a teaspoon, which is good. That's really just what I want. Okay, and in that goes, and I'm going to take a big spoon, if I can find one, and just stir this around to kind of distribute the cinnamon a little bit. And then I'm going to set my pot for high pressure for 5 minutes. Because I have so many apples in here, it's probably going to take a little while to come up to pressure. And we'll see how 5 minutes does. This is an experiment. I've never done this before. I love how I show y'all experiments. But not everything always turns out perfectly, so that's kind of good to see too. Alright, so 5 minutes. We'll see how long it takes. Okay. Alright, so my applesauce is done. You can see that it's been sitting here for 32 minutes because I've been making my jambalaya. But it did only take 21 minutes to come up to pressure for my 5 minutes of cooking. And then, so it was about 15 minutes to come up to pressure. And I heard it bubbling away in there. Can I show you what it looks like just when I open the lid? And you can tell the different varieties of apples. Some really mushed up and some stayed a little more solid. So that's what it looked like when I took the lid off. And I'm just going to take my potato masher. Can you tell it's just giving me no resistance whatsoever. It's just really, really soft, which is perfect. I can't wait to taste it. So it's not totally smooth, you know what I mean? It's the proper texture for applesauce. And now it's turning brown because all that cinnamon is getting mixed in. And something that would be really delicious in this would be a little bit of grass-fed butter or even ghee. But I did not want to put ghee in the whole recipe because it has a different flavor, and my son in particular just hates it. So I didn't want to add that in, but I do want to taste this. So Grandma's applesauce would be shiny and almost syrupy because she put a lot of sugar in it, and you know we didn't put any sugar in ours. It's just the natural apples. Kate, will you come taste it for me? It's really good. Now, like I said before, if you wanted to be decadent, you could by all means drizzle this with some maple syrup or sprinkle a little maple sugar on at the end. Top it with some vanilla ice cream. This is your sample right here, but it is hot. So blow on it for a second and then tell Daddy what you think. So I take a little bite first. It's really good. Is it cinnamony enough for you? It's really good. You like it? That make a nice dessert tonight. Okay, thank you, taste tester. So that was perfect. I would have done that exactly the same way. So in the instruction manual for cooking fruit, like I told you before, they talked about wanting to steam your fruit. I think, like I said, they're wanting for it to stay whole, and they said to do a quick release on the pressure. But I knew I wanted applesauce, and I wanted my apples fully cooked. So we had the 15 minutes to come up to pressure, 5 minutes of cooking, and then I just let it sit here for 30 minutes before I got to it. The pressure really just came down. It took about 25 minutes for the pressure to come down naturally, and it was perfect. So about an hour, and we have this amazing homemade applesauce that I'll portion into bags once it cools and stick in the freezer, and we'll have it for eating. You can use it in recipes and cakes, and you can bet that I will be making some yummy fall treats with this later.